Too. The Congress tweeted the picture of former Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru performing yoga, and they said that on International Day of Yoga, we thank Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who was instrumental in popularizing yoga and even made it a part of the national policy. To which Shashi Tharoor tweeted his shout out to the current BJP government as well. He said that indeed we should also acknowledge all those who revived and popularized yoga, including our government, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the External Affairs Ministry, for internationalizing the International Day of Yoga through the United Nations. And he said that, as I've argued for decades, yoga is a vital part of our soft power across the world, and it's great to see it being recognized. And Yoga Day celebrations are going on across the country and the world, in fact, with several prominent people performing yogas early this morning to motivate and bring that point home. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in fact, too, will perform yoga in New York today to commemorate the 9th International Day of Yoga. The event will see participation from top UN officials, envoys from across the world, and prominent individuals as well. The Prime Minister will perform yoga in just about an hour from now there in New York. Now, back at home, top ministers, politicians are also celebrating Yoga Day today across the country. The Defence Minister Rajnath Singh performed yoga on board the indigenously built aircraft carrier INS Vikrant. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia also performed yoga, and in fact he cycled to work on Yoga Day this morning. Those are the visuals that we're getting you of early this morning of the top ministers performing yoga. And as we celebrate the International Day of Yoga, Prime Minister Narendra Modi sent out a video message saying that yoga has become a global movement through the International Day of Yoga, and the influence is growing rapidly across the globe. Listen in.
अंतर्राष्ट्रीय योग दिवस के जरिए योग एक वैश्विक आंदोलन बन गया है, ग्लोबल स्पिरिट बन गया है। योग के विस्तार का अर्थ है वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की भावना का विस्तार। इसलिए इस वर्ष भारत की अध्यक्षता में हो रहे G20 समिट की थीम भी वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर रखी गई है। और आज पूरी दुनिया में करोड़ों लोग योगा फॉर वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की थीम पर एक साथ योग कर रहे हैं।
Moving on to the other big stories now, this one coming in from Maharashtra. Just days after the CAC report highlighted irregularities to the tune of around 12,000 crore rupees in the expenses incurred by the BMC, in the expenses incurred by the local body there in Mumbai, now the Enforcement Directorate is conducting raids across multiple locations in Mumbai. In fact, ED raids are currently going on in around 15 locations in Mumbai. A personal assistant of Uddhav Thakere's son Aditya Thakere and a close associate of the party's leader Sanjay Raut is also being raided. Their residence is also being raided as a part of this. With that, we'll take a short break. We'll be back with more news on the other side. Stay tuned.
दुनिया में कुछ लोग
Gadget 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadget 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change, and it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is
brought to you by NDTV and Dettol. We start a new year with the goal of trying to ensure that all Indians, regardless of their social, cultural, and economic background, have access to healthcare. Good health.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
Now, disturbing news coming in from Hyderabad. Two gruesome double murders have been reported in and around Hyderabad early this morning. 4 persons, including 2 transgenders, were stabbed and stoned to death. In one case, 2 transgenders have been murdered, and in the second case, 2 men who were sleeping on the road have been stoned and stabbed to death. My colleague Uma Sudhir gets us more details.
2 shocking cases of double murders that have happened in and around Hyderabad. One of them reported from the Tapa Chebutra area of the Hyderabad Commissionerate limits, and in this case 2 people identified as transgenders were found dead in the early hours. One of them has been identified as Yusuf, also called Dali, and the other person identified as Riaz, also called Sophia. Both of them are between 25 and 30 years of age, and the DCP of the area, Mr. Kiran Khare, told NDTV that he believes that the reason or the motivation for this could be some kind of an illegitimate intimacy that happened. He says both these people were friends, and he does not believe that the accused belong to the transgender community. So still questions several unanswered, whether this was also motivated by a sense of bias because they belong to a different sexual orientation, because of the brutality of the murders, because they were not only stabbed but also boulders were used to smash on their head and they were killed on the spot there itself. Therefore, multiple angles being investigated as of now. A second case of double murder happened within the Cyberabad police station limits. This is in an area called Mailardev Pali in Katedan area, and there 2 people who are said to be beggars on sleeping on the road, they were found dead, and in this case as well boulders were used to smash them on the head. Both of their bodies are close to each other, and therefore it is suspected that there could be a single assailant who carried out both these murders, and the stone which was used to smash the head even as these victims were sleeping, that also is there on the spot itself. So as of now, no clues to who could the assailants be. The police are investigating, but what I must point out is that a senior police officer who's worked in the area was telling us that that area has a lot of people using intoxicants, and therefore in that state of intoxication, this kind of murders or violence could have taken place. But of course, no clues yet on what exactly had happened and why these 2 people were murdered, because no property loss has been reported in both these cases.
Moving on, the Enforcement Directorate is conducting raids at several locations in Mumbai with respect to an alleged scam of the BMC, the local municipal corporation there in Bombay. And this comes just days after the CAG report highlighted irregularities to the tune of 12,000 crore rupees in the expenses incurred by the BMC, the local municipal corporation in Mumbai, between November 2019 to October 2022. So the Enforcement Directorate is currently raiding multiple locations across Mumbai. Currently, the raids are going on in around 15 locations. Now, who are the people involved in this alleged scam? A personal assistant of Uddhav Thackeray's son, Aditya Thackeray, and a close associate of his party's leader, Sanjay Raut, were also raided in connection with this alleged 100 crore COVID center scam that has been flagged by a senior BJP leader. Now, the Enforcement Directorate is carrying out raids in Mumbai and in adjoining areas, including the properties of some officials from the BMC. The alleged scam concerns the BMC awarding contracts for managing jumbo COVID centers to businessman Sujit Patkar's Lifeline Management Services. The senior BJP leader, Kirit Somaiya, had filed a complaint and alleged that the contracts were awarded to Mr. Patkar and his 3 partners, despite them having no experience in running such centers. Let's listen in to what Kirit Somaiya said and what the current Deputy Chief Minister, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis, said on this.
संजय राउत के पार्टनर सुजीत पाटकर, उसकी लाइफलाइन हॉस्पिटल मैनेजमेंट सर्विसेज कंपनी, उसके जोड़ीदार, उनके यहाँ ईडी ने 100 करोड़ के कोविड सेंटर घोटाले के संदर्भ में छापे मारे हैं. ऐसे मीडिया में खबरें आ रही है, हिसाब तो देना ही होगा.
असं नेमकी काय कारवाई चाललेली आहे याबद्दल मला माहिती नाही, परंतु एवढं निश्चितपणे सांगतो की ज्यावेळेस मुंबई महानगरपालिकेमध्ये कोविड सेंटर सुरू करण्यात आले आणि त्यानंतर त्या कोविड सेंटरमधला घोटाळा बाहेर आला, त्यावेळी अतिशय धक्कादायक माहिती बाहेर आली होती. कशा प्रकारे कुठलाही एक्सपिरियन्स नसलेल्या कंपन्या तयार झाल्या आणि लोकांच्या जीवाशी कसं अक्षरशः खेळण्यात आलं. ज्या ज्या लोकांचं कनेक्शन असेल त्यांच्याकडेच ही छापेमारी चालली असेल. पण मी पुन्हा एकदा सांगतो की या संदर्भात अधिकृत माहिती ईडी देऊ शकेल, माझ्याकडे या संदर्भातली माहिती नाही आहे.
The ED on Wednesday conducted search operations in several places. Now, this includes the residence of Sujit Patkar, who is a close aide of Sanjay Raut, as well as Suraj Chauhan, a very close aide and known to be very close to Aditya Thackeray. And as we speak, the raid is currently going on. In fact, there are raids happening in multiple locations, not only in Mumbai, but also outside Mumbai as well. Now, this entire raid is being done based on the complaint filed by BJP leader Kirit Somaiya, where he has alleged that there has been irregularities during the setting up of COVID-19 jumbo centers. Now, as we know, at the time when the COVID was at its peak and Mumbai was badly affected, the COVID-19 centers were being set up, and at that time, some of these centers were also outsourced, and this is where the entire issue began. Now, as per the complaint, what is being said that the rules and regulations say that someone who wants to get this contract should have an experience in this field, and Sujit Patkar, it is being alleged, who is very close to Sanjay Raut, his firm got the contract despite not having the experience before. And what is being said is that at that time some of the forged documents were being submitted to brag the contract as well. Now, if you remember, even in January this year, BMC Commissioner Iqbal Singh Chahal was also called by the ED officials. In fact, he went to the ED office in January, where he also spoke on this entire issue, and later he said that when they also came to know that some of those who got the contract would have in fact did not submit the right documents at that time, they had also filed a complaint, and based on that now the raids are going on. Now, the timing is also interesting because 2 days back Maharashtra's Chief Minister Eknath Shinde has also ordered an SIT based on the CAG report, where it says that irregularities up to 12,000 crore has happened at the BMC, and 2 days later what we see is that the raids are going on at the places to people who are close to both Sanjay Raut and Aditya Thackeray. Meanwhile, the opposition is also questioning this and saying this is being done at a time to pressurize those who are in the opposition, because the BMC elections are going to happen, and before that they want to weaken the opposition. So the timing is also being questioned. We also know that during Foundation Day, a lot of things were said by both the sides, be it the Shiv Sena UBT faction or be it the Shiv Sena Shinde faction. But in all of this, as of now, what we can say is that on Wednesday, there are ED raids going on in multiple locations, and these raids are happening at the residence of those who are close to both Sanjay Raut as well as Aditya Thackeray.
Now, to help us understand what this entire alleged scam is, my colleague Megha Prasad is joining us from the studio. And Megha, tell us about this entire alleged scam. And it stems from the time that when Uddhav Thackeray was the chief minister and the BMC was ruled by the Shiv Sena. So what are the allegations?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's, the key point really, Priyanshi, that we are looking at a time period which was when Mr. Uddhav Thackeray, the person who was leading a faction of Shiv Sena currently, was the chief minister with the entire of the Shiv Sena back then. 2019 to 2022 is the 2-year period that the Enforcement Directorate is looking at. Giving you a little bit of a background, this particular complaint was actually given by Mr. Kirit Somaiya, leader and a former parliamentarian of the Bharatiya Janata Party. He had approached the Mumbai police early last year, I think by Feb last year, with a complaint and, alleging a lot of irregularities. In what? These irregularities and his complaint actually pertained to the contracts that were awarded during the time of COVID, the preparations and the functioning and the erection of the jumbo COVID centers, the staff that were required to run these centers, the oxygen plant establishing of them, etc., etc. So these are some areas where these allegations of his were. Now, this complaint was actually turned into an FIR. It was by August of last year. Mumbai police had then handed it over to one of its special branches, the EOW, which is the Economic Offences Wing of theirs, and then they were investigating. Later, the Enforcement Directorate got into the picture and started doing their preliminary investigation on the basis of the allegation that Mr. Kirit Somaiya had levelled. Now, what are these allegations? What do they tell you? I'll take you through those points, but what is important for us to understand here, of course, the time period I've explained, but two key people. One is an aide and a very close friend of Mr. Sanjay Raut. He is one of the main partners in the company where the alleged fraud has happened, and the other one is the private secretary of Aditya Thackeray. So while you are of course looking at a wide investigation, the people who are connected to it quite directly here are Sanjay Raut and Aditya Thackeray, both of the Shiv Sena faction that Uddhav Thackeray at this moment heads. Now, what is the scam? The scam is this: the BMC officials, the BMC actually got embroiled itself into a scam which is about awarding contracts. Now, in February 2022, like I said, BJP leader Kirit Somaiya had approached the Mumbai police, and later on, of course, it went on to be turned into an FIR. The BMC officials allegedly were aware of the fact that when they were awarding the contracts to the Lifeline Hospital, it's a Lifeline Hospital Services Private Company Limited, that Lifeline Hospital was actually existing only on a piece of paper. It was a bogus company. It was a company that was a ghost company. It actually did not exist. The very fact that Pune Municipal Corporation had already blacklisted this particular company, the BMC went ahead and gave them contracts worth 100 crore rupees. Now, if we go forward, we see the further allegations that have been made by Mr. Kirit Somaiya. The company has been awarded actually 21 different contracts by the BMC, despite the fact that it actually was not existing. It did not have the wherewithal to run and function and take care of jumbo COVID centers. And so, the allegation that Kirit Somaiya has now levelled is that first, the BMC officials are hand in glove with this company that belongs to a person who's very close to Sanjay Raut, that this company actually existed only on a piece of paper. It's a ghost company. It just never was there. And the award was, the contract was awarded to this company much prior to it actually getting it registered himself. So what they are saying is that all the details of this company were sought much after the contract was awarded by the BMC to this company, that, the centers that this company was given to run needed about 6,000 to 8,000 employees, while this company just had 18 of them. And that is as per the documents that has been, that are now being investigated by the Enforcement Directorate, by the EOW, by the income tax, etc. So not one, but several different kinds of irregularities that were found. And perhaps on the basis of these strong evidences, you have the Enforcement Directorate today, raiding the premises of more than 15 people.
Megha, thanks very much for joining us with those details and really breaking down this alleged scam that the BMC, I beg your pardon, is facing allegations for. With that, time for a short break. News continues on the other side. Let's talk business coming up. Stay tuned.
"23 years of the big fight." This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, Building a Blueprint for Climate Action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, Building a Blueprint for Climate Action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, Building a Blueprint for Climate Action. The climate clock.
Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Business. Over the next few minutes, we'll get you the top news stories from the world of our economy, business and finance, starting with how the markets performed today. Well, it was a sparkling rally with Nifty just a whisker away. The BSE Sensex touched a record high of 63,588 in the session, but it ended the day with minor gains. Meanwhile, border markets outshined with breadth favoring the advances. Among the sectors, selling was seen in metals, FMCG and realty, while power stocks glittered the Nifty and how. My colleague Hiral Daria joins us with a wrap of all the market action.
A good day of trade for the markets is what we've seen clearly. We have Nifty, which actually ended near the 18,850 levels. And very interestingly, in intraday trade, you had the Sensex actually hit record high levels. In fact, if you track it as well, 63,588 is the new record on Sensex. Overall, a 200 points up move coming in there. Bank Nifty as well was in similar, was trading in tandem with what was happening with benchmark indices, and we ended near the 42,850 mark. Clearly, it was the metal pack that was a drag in today's session. However, power stocks were providing good amount of support and strength in terms of markets. Broader markets, the mid-cap index saw gains of around 0.7%, whereas the small-cap index saw gains of around 0.2%. So clearly, the up move that we saw in today's session was mainly led by bigger names. Overall, the breadth was in favor of the bulls as well. And the clear message that the analysts are giving is that it's a buy on dips market now. And the next level from an upside for the Sensex as well as the psychological 19,000 mark. In terms of top gainers, Power Grid, ONGC, HDFC Bank, HDFC as well as the Adani Ports, whereas on the losing end, you had names like JSW Steel, Hindalco, which were under pressure, ITC, Divi's Laboratories as well as M&M. Let's quickly look at the newsmakers for the day. Blue Dart, you had a Motilal Oswal upgrade coming in on the counter, on the back of which the stock gained the most in 20 months. Lupin has got a FDA node for COPD drug, on the back of which the stock was up. Z Entertainment rose almost over 8% in today's session. Aptus Value Housing dropped on the back of a large trade. Shriram Finance hit a record high on the back of the 8.3% equity change in a block deal, and you had Piramal Enterprises, which was the seller there as well. SpiceJet, on the back of the settlement pack that they've done with NAC for Q400 aircraft, saw some smart moves. Dev IT, which is a small cap, hit a 52-week high on the back of a controlling stake that the US-based company has taken for 300 odd crores. And you had a Thyrocare, where an ICICI Prudential mutual fund has picked up stake, on the back of which the stock zoomed 12%. So overall, a good stock-specific day, a good day for the markets, with the Sensex hitting record high levels in intraday trade. And now the Nifty is just a whisker away from hitting its record high. Back to you.
Thanks very much, Hiral, for that. And we also spoke to Avendus Capital's Andrew Holland about the sectors that he's betting on. Well, he remains bullish from a medium to long-term perspective on sectors like beverages and electronics as well. Listen in.
In terms of what would I be buying, I'd be buying into the themes, which we talked about many times, but just to repeat, defense, renewables, which is not just an India story, but a global story. Domestic kind of spending, more aimed towards airlines, hotels, where I think people will continue to travel within India and spend their money there. And the new one is probably beverages, not just alcoholic, but non-alcoholic as well, where I think the premiumization is really at the very start of what I think to be a very big up move as people move up the kind of value chain in terms of what they drink going forward. So I think that's great for margins for those companies going forward, but just at the start of it. And finally, is the CapEx cycle, which I mentioned is government and private, but again, a little slightly different in that not the BHLs and L&Ts of this world, but more the ABB, Siemens, because I think the smart factories, smart offices is where they'll really be able to kind of make a lot of money and enjoy higher margin.
Shifting focus now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the United States is being considered as a shot in the arm for US-India trade relationship. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is making his 6th visit to the US, will be meeting the members of the Congress, American CEOs and members of the Indian-American community as well. So while speaking to BQ Prime's executive editor Neeraj Shah, the Kotak Mahindra AMC's Nilesh Shah says that the Prime Minister's visit to the US will reassure investors that their investments are safe in India. Listen in.
The Prime Minister's visit should reassure investors that their capital is not only safe in India, but is also providing great opportunity to participate in India's growth story. Over the last 20 years, India has delivered better return than most emerging markets. Over the next 20 years, there will be acceleration in the same. The Prime Minister's visit should reassure investors that there are 3G in India which are unique and not available in other emerging market peers. earnings growth better than peer group, governance standards better than peer group, and green transformation, which will help manage climate challenges better than peer group. This 3G of growth, governance, and green provide an impeccable opportunity to global investors.
And now to a major update on the SEBI crackdown on the promoters of Zee. Zee's manager, the merger partner Sony, has today said in a statement that they have taken SEBI's interim order against Zee very seriously. The company added that it is continuously monitoring the developments that may affect the deal. Remember, over a week back, market regulator SEBI had in an interim order barred Chandra and Goenka from holding the position of a director or of a key managerial person. SEBI had accused them of abusing their position to siphon funds for their own benefit. And moving on to the other big story now, the Reserve Bank of India, a major update coming in from the central bank. Personal loans and credit cards are the flavor of the season in Indian banking, but the central bank doesn't seem to be happy about it. The central bank is looking to tighten the norms for banks, making it harder for them to write such loans. Smriti Chaudhary is joining us with more details on this.
Right, thanks for that. The RBI might be looking to curtail growth of unsecured loans in the Indian banking system. As we have seen over the last 2 years, such credit like personal loans or credit card debt has grown at a rapid clip. Sources have told BQ Prime that the RBI may be looking to increase the risk weights of such loans on bank balance sheets. Raising the risk weights would mean that the banks may have to set aside higher provisions against such loans, thereby eating up capital required for growth. But given the high margin that banks earn on personal loans, raising the weights may not necessarily have the desired impact of slowing things down. This also comes at a time when banks have stayed pretty sanguine on asset quality of such loans. Credit rating agencies like ICRA and CRISIL have also indicated that NPAs have not risen in a notable manner in the segment. These segments are also lucrative for banks because of the high margin they can earn on these products. And another contributor to the growth has been the tepid demand for credit from the corporate sector, where some of the large companies have actually deleveraged themselves over the last couple of years. Overall, there seems to be a divergence on how banks are looking at unsecured credit versus how the RBI is looking at it. While sectoral experts say that the trends will also bear out in the next 12 to 15 months, it will be key to watch how credit card delinquencies evolve going forward. Back to you.
That's all we have for you in this segment of Let's Talk Business. Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.
Amity School of Communication has been ranked among India's top 5 mass comm institutes for the last 3 years by India Today.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, Building a Blueprint for Climate Action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when
Welcome back. As a part of NDTV's campaign to get action and to motivate action to combat climate change, we are striving to demystify and de-jargonize climate change for you. So watch Anubhav Bhosle demystify the science, politics and technology behind the concept of net zero and how it may or may not hold the key to a greater future.
Today, I'm talking about net zero. Net zero? Net zero what? Why does this word get thrown around so much every time climate change comes up? Is it science? Is it politics? Is it technology? My name is Anubhav Bhosle and I'm breaking down this very important concept on the Climate Explainers today. It's a simple scientific concept, though it rarely gets talked about like that. Let me try and make an attempt. Imagine a scale. On one side, we have the greenhouse gases we release, and on the other side, we have greenhouse gases we take out. Now, we have to balance the amount of greenhouse gases we release into the atmosphere with the amount we remove from it. The scale has to stay balanced so that too many gases don't cause global warming. Now, scientists have studied this and set a limit for how much the Earth can warm without causing severe problems. And that limit is 1.5 degrees Celsius. We need to keep the warming under it. They have found that we can release around 260 gigatons of CO2 if we want to control global warming. But here's the catch. Currently, the world is emitting around 40 gigatons of CO2 every year. So if we continue at this rate, we're going to use up all our carbon budget in just over 6 years and go beyond the 1.5 degrees warming limit. That's why scientists say all countries need to achieve net zero. Now remember, they can do this by two ways. One, reduce the usage of fossil fuel like coal, oil and gas for energy, which release a lot of greenhouse gases. And number two, they can find ways to remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. One way of doing that is using nature's help. For example, planting forests that can absorb CO2 and store it. Now, another way is new technology to capture CO2 emissions and store them underground where they can't contribute to global warming. So how are countries planning to achieve net zero? 2015 is an important date to think about. Many countries, including India, signed an agreement called the Paris Climate Change Agreement. Countries actually came up with their own targets for when they want to achieve net zero, that is, balance their greenhouse gas emissions with their greenhouse gas removals. This includes the US. It is the world's second largest greenhouse gas emitter, and it has set a target for 2050. China and Russia, the world's first and fifth largest CO2 emitters, have set a target for 2060. Oil haven Saudi Arabia says it will try for net zero by 2060. India, the fourth largest greenhouse gas emitter, has set a target of 2070. A note here, these are long-term pledges and they are not legally binding. So net zero is not in that sense immediate climate action. And here's where a very important part of the net zero discourse comes into play. Global North versus Global South. There is concern about countries in the Global South, like India, setting targets beyond 2050. The argument is that we simply don't have that kind of time. But remember, the first crucial part is that the burden of the bulk of the climate crisis actually falls on the global north, so the Americas, the Europe, etc. Many developing countries like India have basic needs that are yet to be met for a large percentage of their population. The second thing to remember is that it requires a lot of money to change existing power stations, build new renewable energy infrastructure, or buy or build that very expensive carbon capture technology that I spoke about earlier in the video. The third thing is developing countries are asking developed countries to support them financially because they have contributed less to global warming. Now, not all developed countries are actually ready to do so. Most of them are offering what are called climate loans that need to be paid back. The fourth thing to remember that there are lots of things politicians have to think about which scientists simply don't. Planting a lot of trees requires water, which could be a problem for areas where water is scarce. Net zero is an important goal, but there are challenges and a big picture, those least responsible bearing the brunt for essentially historical excesses that have been committed against them. I'll take you through all of these concepts in more detail in the coming episodes. As always, if you've been watching, thank you very much for your time.
So clearly, the Great Climate Change Challenge is now open, and we are looking to connect with social entrepreneurs, tech innovators, NGOs, young scientists, and students as well. So if you are a climate change warrior, or if you know someone who's doing incredible work in this space, you can send us your entries to ndtv.com/climate change, and we'll bring some of the most innovative stories to the world.
This reward. 23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive welcome to this special programming. Today is the 9th International Yoga Day, and a short while from now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be spearheading the festivities at the UN headquarters, which will be attended by delegates from over 180 nations. NDTV's Maha Siddiqui is there outside the UN headquarters where the program will be taking place. Maha, take us through the preparations there, and already people have started arriving there. There'll be some big names. Richard Gere is there as well.
Yes, absolutely. And Richard Gere has already arrived at the UN headquarters. I've just sent those pictures, and we'll be just putting them out in a bit on the television screens. Apart from Richard Gere, there are several other celebrities who are participating. There will also be award-winning Indian chef and Michelin star chef Vikas Khanna, who will also be participating today. Jay Shetty, award-winning storyteller and podcaster. Richard Gere, we've already spoken about. Apart from him, Eric Adams, American politician and former police officer serving as the 110th mayor of New York City, as well as Saba Qureshi. He is the UNGA president, who will be performing yoga. Right behind me over here is where the yoga event will be held. The mats have all been laid out, and in a short while from now, we'll be seeing Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrive here and lead the Yoga Day events. Just a short while back, I got you a glimpse, a sense of the preparations that were underway right from the morning. Let's take a look at that report. It's early morning here in New York, and right behind me you can see the mats laid out for the celebration of International Yoga Day. The International Yoga Day this time is going to be led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and all the missions of the UN have been extended an invitation for the International Yoga Day celebrations this year. The Yoga Day was adopted by the United Nations in 2015 at the behest of India. India had cobbled up support for this ancient practice to be adopted by the UN as a particular day, as an international day of yoga celebration, to bring awareness about health and the need for the body and the consciousness to be in sync. This event today is being held 8 years after the Yoga Day event was adopted by the United Nations, and about 1,000 people are expected to be participating here today in this premises of the United Nations headquarters. But at several other places across New York, and specifically Times Square, arrangements have been made for people to simultaneously perform the yoga. Many people have already started coming in here this morning to perform the yoga. There is a sense of excitement amongst people, considering significantly that there are a large number of people who practice yoga in America itself. In fact, if you look at the economics of it all, an industry estimate had suggested in 2019 that the global yoga market is about $38 billion and is likely to rise to about $66 billion by 2027. And North America actually leads the number of yoga practitioners online, offline, as well as those associated with this ancient practice. But Indo-Pacific is not getting left behind, is also catching up in this sphere. So in a short while from now, the yoga event is going to start here, and we'll continue getting you all the very latest. With camera person AJ Joseph, this is Maha Siddiqui in New York for NDTV. I have a special invitee here to the International Yoga Day event at the UN headquarters. Former newsreader from Doordarshan. I'm sure many of you would recognize her, Sheila Chaman. She's also now an instructor of yoga, I understand. How did you take to that?
Well, yoga, as I said, is like breath of life. Without breath, there is no life. And I think everyone in the world wants a good life, good quality of living. And yoga is India's gift to the world, with Prime Minister Modi having initiated and started this. I think the world has taken to it, and I'm very proud and happy to be here when he's here. I was here in 2015 when the first International Day of Yoga was celebrated at the United Nations. And it was such an exciting event that it just spread like wildfire. And with PM Modi being here himself this year, it's made it even more significant.
How do you see this cultural connect of yoga through the UN across the world now? Because, in America, there has been this practice of yoga which was adopted by people themselves. A lot of people already have been practicing yoga in the US. How come it was so popular here in America, considering you come quite often over here and do know quite a bit about this place?
Maha, you will be surprised to know how much into yoga the Americans are. I think even more. They make it a way of life. I mean, they are so particular about yoga. And to them, yoga is not just an exercise or something to do every day. It's become a way of life. For example, the breath. The very breath that we take gives you the life. And I've seen so many yoga people, people around America, talk about yoga. Every time they see an Indian, hey, you are the yoga giver to the world. So that's how it is. And I think that the connect is, the bond is getting stronger with yoga having spread all over the world. And PM Modi is being here, and tomorrow he's going to have dinner with President Biden. I think they will have a better relationship, more interesting talks, and the word yoga will become synonymous with India.
One final question to you. Today, any specific asanas that you all have been told about that will be performed? How is it going to look like?
The asanas are a surprise. As you can see, Denise, my good friend, she's on the mic, and she's going to be conducting the yoga session. She herself is a yoga instructor. And, well, it's all a big surprise, so let's wait for the surprise. I'm sure your camera will cover it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much, Sheila Chaman, for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Let's quickly listen in now to the message by the Prime Minister and also by the UNSG, who's not here, Antonio Guterres, but he sent out a video message on International Day of Yoga.
अंतर्राष्ट्रीय योग दिवस के जरिए योग एक वैश्विक आंदोलन बन गया है, ग्लोबल स्पिरिट बन गया है। योग के विस्तार का अर्थ है वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की भावना का विस्तार। इसलिए इस वर्ष भारत की अध्यक्षता में हो रहे G20 समिट की थीम भी वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर रखी गई है। और आज पूरी दुनिया में करोड़ों लोग योगा फॉर वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की थीम पर एक साथ योग कर रहे हैं।
Let me now go across to yoga practitioner and author Ira Trivedi, who's joining us here on the show. Ira, you are, sitting far away from New York at the moment, but right behind us, I'm not sure if you can see, the mats are laid out. The asanas are going to be a surprise, but I want to understand from you, how did you take to yoga, and what change have you seen in yourself since you've been performing yoga?
So I just want to say that I'm having major FOMO. Now I know the meaning of this word when I'm seeing what's going on there. And actually, I had led the International Yoga Day class 8 years ago at India Gate, where of course our Prime Minister was there and so many other dignitaries were there. That was the first ever International Yoga Day 8 years ago. So I can absolutely relate to the scene happening in front of you because I've been there when it was at India Gate in New Delhi, but it looks absolutely amazing. And I'm so, so proud that our Prime Minister is in New York and, doing this session and really bringing the whole world together in the practice of yoga. So on a personal front, I must say that yoga has led to immense transformation. On a physical level, there were so many health issues I had, even growing up, throat issues, I used to get a lot of tonsillitis, gut issues. And nowadays, health issues start at very young age. By the 20s, you start seeing people with so many issues. Yoga took away all of those. On a mental level, I must say that I'm really so much more centered, and grounded. And a daily yoga practice has led to that. And on a spiritual level, my gosh, what immense transformation. Just the practice of physical asana can lead to this. And especially in the world that we live in today, a daily simple practice of yoga is so needed. You know, we do live in pretty toxic environments, especially those who live in cities, the air that we breathe, the food that we eat. So I really feel that yoga is this ancient practice, which is so relevant for our modern world, you know, and everyone should adopt this. This is the best anti-aging, immunity building, strength building on a mental and physical level practice. So I really encourage that today, when the whole world is doing yoga, we should all take this sankalpa to integrate yoga into our lives. And it doesn't have to be an hour class every single day. It can simply be 10, 15 minutes of a simple breathing practice. And even that can lead to immense transformation.
So, Ira, which is one of the asanas that you ensure you perform every day without fail? And can you just do it for us right away?
Yes, I can. Now, I do this asana every single day, no matter what. That is the Shirshasana, the headstand. It is known as the king of all asanas. And really, every single yoga guru of our time has said that. Of our time in ancient times, that this is the best asana to do. And it can give you eternal life. So I'm going to do the Shirshasana right now. But, if you aren't a regular practitioner of Shirshasana, then take baby steps to learn it. Make sure that you're studying the contradictions before you do this asana. Right, so I'm going to be just doing the Shirshasana. It's a really beautiful asana, and the longer you hold this asana, the more the benefits. Let's just start this in child's pose and slowly begin to get into this asana. It's actually a lot more difficult than it looks. It's a very, very simple asana. And just you come up and you hold this posture. One of my favorite asanas. Other than that, it's a fantastic asana. So this is my personal favorite asana. This is the asana that I do every single day. Immense benefits for your brain, immense benefits for circulation, for lymphatic drainage. Just also you're using your entire body strength to hold yourself up. So it's a deeply relaxing asana, and also on an emotional level helps you get over fears and face your fears. And that's what I love about it.
All right. Ira, many thanks for performing that asana for us. Do stay on with us. Let me quickly introduce our other guests as well who are joining us here on the show. Santhanam Sridharan, yoga expert, and Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former diplomat as well. But before I go to the other guests, let me bring in former ambassador to the United Nations, India's ambassador to the United Nations, Ambassador Mukherjee, who was instrumental in getting the International Yoga Day adopted by the United Nations. He was India's envoy to the United Nations when this entire bid was put through. Many thanks for speaking with us, sir. My first question, of course, is what went on behind the scenes to get 21st June adopted by the United Nations as International Day of Yoga?
Well, the proposal was to be put into the agenda of the United Nations General Assembly. We found the ongoing Sustainable Development Negotiations agenda had global health in it. We put the Yoga Day proposal under global health so that it would come up for a decision in the month of December that year. The second thing we did was to get China as our main co-sponsor, which brought the vast number of the G77 and developing countries as co-sponsors. And armed with this critical mass, we were able to cross the two-third majority by the end of November itself. And the third thing that helped us was the fact that yoga plays a very important role in most societies in the world. And we were able to use that popular appeal of yoga in especially the Islamic countries. We had 48 out of 56 members of the Organization of Islamic Conference as co-sponsors of our proposal. So by the 11th of December, we had 177 co-sponsors, which is a record for the United Nations. And we reached it within 75 days, which is also a record for the United Nations.
Ambassador Mukherjee, I want to understand from you how significant a role does soft and cultural diplomacy play in the entire ambit of diplomacy itself?
Well, soft diplomacy plays a very important role in multilateral diplomacy and in bilateral diplomacy. In the multilateral space, we have been able to use our soft diplomacy through an initiative like the Yoga Day to give substance to initiatives taken in the economic field. When you look at global health, for example, the contribution that yoga has made to pushing the global health agenda towards a sustainable health for all in the context of the global population, but also in the sense of contributing to the change in lifestyle. When the Prime Minister made the proposal, that was what he had emphasized, that we need to change consumption patterns, we need to change our lifestyle. And in that context, the entire dynamic of the climate change process, the climate change negotiations got converged with the Yoga Day initiative. And we were able to see an outcome in 2015, in November 2015 at Paris, when the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change negotiations reached a major agreement, and also on restricting emission of greenhouse gases. But along with that, an initiative that was taken by India and France, and which was then pushed by India subsequently, to create an international solar alliance, showcasing the role of solar energy in terms of renewable energy for development. And I think the proof of the impact of that is visible in the first international intergovernmental organization to be headquartered in India, which is the International Solar Alliance. And today it has more than 120 member states as its members. So this kind of initiative came because of the soft power diplomacy which was introduced with Yoga Day. But it, as I explained, led to beyond just culture. It went into economics, into climate change, and it also has gone into conflict prevention and settlement, because the core is of the message of the Yoga Day is harmony between not only man and nature, but within the individual. And it is my hope that we will be able to use this message of soft diplomacy through the Yoga Day initiative to actually kickstart a political settlement of conflicts which are on the agenda of the international community, and that require a human-centric approach, which is what we have tried to push by saying that this is not an era of war, because war is not in the interest of any individual whose life and properties are getting destroyed through conflicts, and whose fundamental human rights are restricted. I mean, look at what has happened because of conflict situations in Yemen, for example, or even in post-conflict situations, but in restrictions like in Afghanistan, where you need a revival of a human-centric approach. And I think that the soft power message of yoga can contribute to such political processes as well.
All right, that is Ambassador Mukherjee speaking with NDTV here. Many thanks, sir. Let me now go across to our other two guests as well who are here with us, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, as well as our other guest who's a yoga practitioner also joining us here. Let me first go across to our guest who's a yoga practitioner. Sir, I want to ask you, first of all, I just asked Ira Trivedi this, Mr. Sridharan, as to which asan is one that she performs every day without fail. I want to ask you the same question. Which is the one asana that you would recommend that that every person who performs yoga must aim at doing daily?
Lovely. Thank you so much. Namaste, everyone. What a beautiful platform. So Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam as a theme in my 15 years of yoga teacher journey, when I look back at it, you're really putting me at a tough spot. Any yoga teacher is going to agree to choose one asana as a favorite, but I'm still going to try and answer the question for you. Okay. Sheesh asana, a lot of people are going to say that, but there are two asanas which I make sure all my practitioners do, which is my beginners, and there is one asana which my advanced practitioners or I do daily. Is it okay if I choose two and I show them? Would you allow that? All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Go ahead.
And the first one is simply called as Adho Mukha Svanasana or downward dog. At this point of time, it's pertinent that I introduce, my favorite inspiration, my favorite student, my wife, who is right here. She will demonstrate the Adho Mukha Svanasana for me. It's very simple. You will slowly, that is Neelam, that is my inspiration. And she's also a brilliant yoga practitioner. So you just go into a downward dog position. All right. This is like a mountain pose. In Hatha, it is called that. It's such a powerful pose in relieving any lower back pain and also helps in flexibility. It also helps a lot in your breathing and your lung capacity. It helps in such a beautiful way and it opens you up very much. This is one asana. The second, thank you so much, Neelam. The second asana is a little bit advanced. I would recommend practitioners who are beginners not to do this unless you learn under an able guidance. This is called Kakasana. Okay, it's like a simple balance posture. What you do is from here, you place the palms and you will lean and you will balance. It's a very simple looking asana, but it also requires quite a bit of strength in your arms and your core, and it also demands you to breathe right. This is another important aspect when it comes to a yoga practice. Asana alignment, along with it, the breathing should go along with it.
All right. Many thanks, Mr. Sridharan, for performing those two asanas for us. Let me go across to Ambassador Prabhu Dayal now. Sir, are you a yoga practitioner by any chance? Can I ask you that question? And also, once again, about soft diplomacy. Do you see it being an effective tool negotiating sometimes tough deals if one has that soft diplomacy power on them?
Well, Maha, one of my regrets is that I have not learned yoga. Of course, as one grows older, one realizes there are more things in life.
It's never too late.
Well, you have the yoga teacher right there. Maybe I should contact him for a few lessons. I will also ask him to give me a few lessons on how to treat your wife as a student. Because for me, my wife is a teacher and I must obey her. I suppose if she tells me to learn yoga, I will start doing it, but I will take your advice too. Now, talking of the entire concept of the International Yoga Day. Prime Minister Modi proposed it during his address at the UN General Assembly in 2014. Now, why did he do so? Yesterday, after meeting Prime Minister Modi, Mr. Elon Musk said that of Prime Minister, he really wants to do the right thing for India. I will go even a step further and say that Prime Minister Modi wants to do the right thing for the world. He always has the good of the world at heart. And it is because of that reason that he proposed the International Day of Yoga, to highlight the importance of yoga for the world. I have heard this slogan today, Yoga se hoga. a lot of things become possible because of the right approach. Better health is for one thing, a more peaceful world. The Prime Minister is doing his utmost to make the world a better place. He has also been emphasizing the idea of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. He has even adopted it as the motto for the G20. Why? Because he wants to make the world realize that our happiness is interdependent on one another, that we are one family, and therefore we should try and do good for one another. So, being this sort of a person, our Prime Minister proposed the idea of an International Day of Yoga, and we all know how this idea has really taken off, and how there are so many millions of people who are yoga practitioners now, and who very enthusiastically take part in the celebrations of the International Day of Yoga.
Okay. All right. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, we'll have to leave it at that, sir. Many thanks to all of you for joining us here on this special discussion on the International Yoga Day event. I'm leaving you here. We are heading into a quick break, but these are the pictures now. People have started gathering, and the event is just about to start in New York sometime from now. People have already taken their positions to start performing the yoga on their respective mats here that were laid out. We'll catch you in a bit, taking a quick break. Stay with us.
Brought to you by
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change, and it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change, and it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
Welcome back. We are here at the UN headquarters in New York and the stage is all set, or should I say the grass is all set with the mats laid out now. And people already gathered here. In fact, some of the celebrities have already arrived and taken their positions as well to start performing the yoga. The event is going to start any time from now. The Prime Minister is yet to arrive. He will be leading the International Yoga Day events. So it's quite a beautiful setting, and my camera person is just going to pan around and show you, so you'll be able to see the skyscrapers of New York surrounding this entire UN Plaza, UN complex, and the flags of all the missions there right in the center of this spot. They are fluttering. There's a very nice breeze here. It's a sunny day, but breezy as well. All the mats, yellow mats, are laid out on the green grass, so visually quite appealing as well. And everybody is all set now with their energy drinks and water bottles to start performing the yoga. Richard Gere arrived a short while back. Let's quickly listen in to what he had to say about the International Day of Yoga and about him being a participant today at this event in New York.
It's the feeling here is so open and embracing. You know, I would hope this feeling intoxicates this entire building, the sense that we are responsible for each other.
So, of course, I didn't introduce Richard Gere, assuming that everybody knows him, an actor and now a practitioner of yoga as well. Ricky Kedge, 3-time Grammy Award winner, is also here to perform the yoga at the United Nations headquarters today. Let's quickly listen in to him as well.
Extremely excited to be here at the UN headquarters. The energy is electrifying. There are so many people. I think thousands of people are over here. And we're going to get to do yoga. I'm wearing, don't let this jacket fool you. I'm going to be taking out the jacket and I'm wearing my yoga clothes and I'm going to be doing some yoga. I'm going to be following Prime Minister Modi this time. I've been to a couple of yoga events in the past at the UN because the World Yoga Day has been celebrated over here since 2014 when Prime Minister Modi made it happen. And, you know, and it's always been good, but this time it's going to be really huge and amazing.
Well, it's...
All right, we're now being joined by Leonard Ferron Bozalo. He's an international yoga teacher. Many thanks for joining us here on NDTV. First of all, how did you start performing yoga yourself?
Namaste. So I started my journey in yoga in India, actually. I went to study. So I practiced here in Portugal, mainly because I had asthma, a condition, and I've tried everything, all doctors, all therapies, and nothing worked. So I tried yoga. And actually, I saw such a huge difference that I decided that I wanted to follow this path and learn more about it, about this incredible science. And so I went to India and I studied in a Yoga Vidya Gurukul, an ashram, and I fall in love with the path of yoga. It was my journey and my mission. And so it started like this 10 years ago.
All right, so Yoga Day celebrations there at the UN headquarters, and Maha bringing us a glimpse of all the preparations ahead of Yoga Day. And we're in conversation with Leonor Ferron Buzaglo. Thank you so much for speaking to us. You're talking about how you got into yoga. Now, before this, we had two other yoga practitioners who we asked, what is that one asana that you really like, that one asana that you make sure you do every day?
So, I think Padmasana, because what I give priority to is my meditation practice.
All right. Well, Padmasana, I always found it the most difficult to do. It requires a lot of flexibility there, but also the significance of India and yoga in the last 9 years. Yoga Day has been celebrated after the Indian Prime Minister put that request to the UN. What will your comments be on this? Because India is where yoga began, and now it's all across the world, and we're very proud of this association.
Yes, we cannot dissociate yoga from India because it's its mother, it's the birth place. So in my opinion, it's very important to understand that yoga is part of India with all its knowledge and traditions and energy and wisdom. So for me, it's very important to pass to my students all that comes from India through yoga. And also, it's very beautiful how...
All right, that's Lenore speaking with us on yoga, on performing yoga, how she took to yoga and what changes she believes yoga has made to her life. We'll go back to our guests, but I'll quickly get you a glimpse of what's happening here. So apart from the fact that the stage is set here for the International Yoga Day celebrations, there's a sizable number of media personnel as well. You can see the kind of interest that this event has generated. It's not just the Indian media here, international media as well covering this event. And the list of celebrities joining in the event today is also quite long. And many of them have already arrived, also taken their positions there. In fact, the event is just about to start. People are
just waiting for Prime Minister Modi to come, and then he will be leading the Yoga Day events here at the UN headquarters. Now in 24...
At the UN headquarters. Now in 20... It was proposed that yoga should be adopted as a proper day of celebration by the United Nations. Then India started its bid to cobble up support for getting this adopted as an International Yoga Day. And surprisingly, and in the current circumstances, one would perhaps want to mention this, is that at that time, China was one of the first countries to in fact be the co-sponsor for this resolution, and that's how so much of support could be garnered for getting this passed. And as Ambassador Mukherjee also mentioned earlier, that the group of Islamic nations as a chunk supported this as well, barring Saudi Arabia and Pakistan was an outlier there. Saudi Arabia also came on board later on. So with a large chunk of support, it was easy for India finally, within 45 days, they kind of managed that support which was required to be able to get this adopted as International Yoga Day. Since 2015, the 21st of June is celebrated as International Day of Yoga. And 21st of June is, as you know, summer solstice. It's the longest day in the Northern Hemisphere, and it has its significance in various cultures. So there is a significance to the day as well. The announcements have started. You can see some movements there. In fact, you can just spot some people there coming in with a pram as well, getting their babies along, their kids along for the event as well. Initial announcements with regards to the event have already started here, but for the moment we are still waiting for the Prime Minister to arrive, and after which the yoga event will officially get underway here in New York. Once the event is over, the Prime Minister will then be moving to Washington DC. We'll take a very quick break. We'll be back with a lot more. Stay with us.
दुनिया में कुछ
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360, Gadget Love.
Gadgets 360, Gadgets Love.
You too can get some gadget love with buying guides, expert reviews, and all the latest news on Gadgets 360.
It's undeniable. We're facing the crisis of the generation, climate change. And it's happening. Not in some far-off distant land or some millions of years away. It's happening now. And it affects everything we know and love. Information around climate change can often feel too distant, too jargony, too scary, too anxiety-filled, too technical, or too political. I'm here to change that. The Climate Explainers, part of NDTV's 6-month-long campaign, building a blueprint for climate action. The climate clock is ticking, but we're just in time.
Facts are the foundation of a news story, but it's the views that shape these stories. Because when you hear views from all sides, you get the complete picture.
23 years of the big fight. This show is not just an ordinary debate show, but it is a responsibility in service of our viewers.
NDTV for news you can trust. No sensationalism, no ugly debates, no agenda. We strive to be transparent and unbiased in our reporting so you can get news that you can rely on.
Gadgets 360 is here to help you with all your tech needs.
Gadget 360,
Welcome back. The yoga event is about to start. In about 20 minutes from now is when everybody will start performing the yoga here. So in about 10 to 15 minutes is when we should be.
People people settling in now on their yoga mats. The flags of the various missions fluttering there in the
early morning New York breeze. Skyscrapers dotting this entire UN plaza, and the setting certainly is quite wonderful this morning. To start, and we'll.
Gets us quite a surprise. Several celebrities are here who are going to be performing the yoga as well. But just a short while back, I spoke with former U.S. diplomat Donald Trump, who's here himself, one of the invitees to perform the yoga today. And let's quickly listen into what he believes the International Day of Yoga has done and why soft diplomacy is an important tool in diplomacy.
I have with me former U.S. diplomat Donald Trump here, who's going to be performing yoga this morning at the International Yoga Day event here at the UN headquarters. Many thanks for speaking with NDTV. You're up early to be present here for the yoga event?
I'm very excited, yes. We don't often get to celebrate yoga at the UN, but it's a great occasion. Glad to have the Prime Minister here.
Talking about yoga, and since you've been a former diplomat, the question here is obvious. How important is cultural and soft diplomacy in the ambit of diplomacy itself?
Yoga comes from India, of course, but I saw a film recently where someone said, oh, you practice yoga daily? You must be an American. So it's really caught on in the United States.
Do you think that having a day particularly set out by the UN as International Day of Yoga, does that help propagate this ancient practice?
I think it does, and the Indian mission here is very effective in that. They were the ones who, I think 9 years ago, established the International Day of Yoga with the support of the General Assembly. So it's an important occasion. It's good to have this here at the United Nations.
So let's talk a little bit about geopolitics as well. As far as International Yoga Day is concerned, I want to connect it with that. When India was seeking support to get it passed through the UNGA, China, I understand, was one of the first countries to come forward and was a co-sponsor, and then that gathered a lot of others. At the current moment, China and India are engaged in a friction in eastern Ladakh. How do you see these dramatic changes that we've seen over the last few years, especially related to China?
Well, I would say also the United States was one of the first co-sponsors in 2014 as well. But yes, I mean, India is unique and is different from the United States in that India has a border with China. We are across the Pacific Ocean, so you have these issues as well, and you also have enormous trade with China, as does the United States. So obviously it's an issue of we need to cooperate and hopefully have fewer conflicts as there are currently at the China-India border.
The US, in fact, on quite a few occasions over the last 3 years since the border friction has been on, has voiced its opinion in favor of India. Is it only because at the current moment China and US are not on the same page?
Well, I would just say, since we're here at the UN, I would say the United States has been, since President Obama's presidency, a supporter of India as an eventual permanent member of the Security Council. And that's obviously a very important decision. Trump reiterated that when he was president, and I imagine we'll have President Biden as well saying the same thing in Washington later this week.
But can it go beyond just words? Because out of the P5 members, 4 are on side of India, but China still is a hurdle in that journey.
China is very much a hurdle, and India will need to work with China and perhaps provide some incentives of some kind to get Chinese support for an eventual role in the Security Council.
How significant would you say are the reforms that India has been pushing for in the United Nations? Because India has said that UN doesn't represent the current realities, and many people across the world agree with that.
Well, and I think the United States would agree as well that the Security Council was created in 1945 by the victors in the war at a time when India was still a colony of the United Kingdom. So things have changed, and everyone acknowledges the Security Council needs to be changed, the UN needs to be reformed. It's a matter of how, because you're opening sort of a Pandora's box with such a difficult and complex undertaking as reform of the United Nations.
Why do you call it Pandora's box? Because reforms are for improving an organization.
Of course, but then this is the one opportunity for the rest of the world to enter the Security Council. So everyone, Africa is looking for 2 permanent seats, which is fair. Brazil, South Africa, Japan, Germany, everyone wants a seat. So it's a very difficult negotiating issue, to be sure.
Sure. In the same context, would you say that the proposal by some suggesting that veto power shouldn't be extended to the other permanent members who might be included as reforms happen, as and when they happen, do you think that would be unfair, and then there should be no veto for any permanent member in that case?
That's a very difficult question. The 5 permanent members of the Security Council would be very loath to give up that power, as you can imagine, but also it would make it extremely difficult for the United Nations to function, or the Security Council to function with numerous veto holders, as we have discovered over the past 75 years.
My final question to you, and that again is with regards to the veto. We have a country, Russia, with veto powers in the P5, and there has been criticism over the manner in which it has invaded Ukraine. Then how do you really argue the fact that wielding a veto power is important for the permanent 5 members?
It is a complicating factor, certainly, and recently the General Assembly passed a resolution saying that anything that is vetoed would eventually come to the General Assembly for discussion. So you have a sense of what is world opinion on this issue of Russia and Ukraine, and it is very clear the world community has spoken. They oppose that invasion. But that has no binding power. The Security Council is the only entity of the United Nations that has that power binding over members of the Charter.
That will be all, Donald Camp. Many thanks for speaking with NDTV. All right, so Prime Minister Narendra Modi has in fact arrived at the UN headquarters. My camera person is just showing you some visuals in which you can see towards right at the end India's ambassador to the United Nations there in a white shalwar kameez. I don't know if you'll be able to spot Ruchira Kamboj there. She's already here.
He's already in the premises and just walking his way through inside to this specific spot, the North Lawns of the United Nations headquarters. This is what this area is called. He'll be here shortly. Once the people around here saw shots of the Prime Minister on those plasma screens, there was some applause here in a way to welcome the Prime Minister, who will be leading the Yoga Day, International Yoga Day event. In about 5 to 10 minutes from now is when we should be seeing everyone start performing the various asanas. So about 1,000 people here in the North Lawns of the United Nations headquarters. But several other simultaneous events are being conducted. And in New York itself, at the Times Square, there is going to be a group of people performing the yoga today. Some of the celebrities who've already joined in, Richard Gere, we just saw him just a short while back walking in, talking about how the International Day, significance of the International Day of Yoga. Now, talking about the events here, and I'll just maybe request my camera person to just show us that plasma screen as well, where we can have a glimpse there of the Prime Minister is just about to come to this spot where the International Yoga Day event is going to be held. The officials are all accompanying the Prime Minister. It's quite windy here as well. So there were several mats laid out. And you can see some of the mats now, flying because it's nice, windy. The weather is really good. So an outdoor setting of this nature to perform the yoga on the 21st of June, the longest day, the longest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere, the summer solstice, certainly is providing the apt setting today. So we can see the Prime Minister now. He has just arrived at the venue. You can see him on the stage, and then in minutes after that, we'll see the yoga performance starting. This will be about, an entire event will be about an hour. after which the Prime Minister will be leaving from here immediately for Washington, D.C., which is where the state visit will be conducted. You can see the pictures there of Prime Minister Modi there. A round of applause there by the people now, all those who are in the north lawns of the United Nations headquarters to perform the yoga. So in a short while we'll be able to, let's dip in and let's listen into the event now. Yoga masters.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, yoga masters, brothers and sisters, all of those watching on web TV and joining us today, namaste. A very warm welcome to everyone. Happy International Day of Yoga 2023. This is the time that we've all been waiting for. The time has come for me to share how much we're deeply honored. We're so privileged to have with us today none other than the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, a distinguished world leader and an ardent yoga practitioner. I'd like to remind everyone that it is Prime Minister Modi ji himself back in December 2014 who introduced the idea of establishing World Yoga Day to the UN General Assembly. A record number of 175 member states recognized yoga's universal appeal and adopted the landmark resolution proclaiming June 21 as International Yoga Day, the day of the summer solstice here in the north. So every 21 of June is World Yoga Day. This day provides people everywhere across the globe, all of us and everyone watching, an opportunity to reflect upon the countless benefits of practicing yoga. Indeed, an invaluable gift in the world from India's ancient tradition. We thank the Honorable Prime Minister of India for this notable initiative, which is now celebrated worldwide with enthusiasm and vigor. I will now begin the official part of today's event by requesting Ambassador Ruchira Kamboj, India's permanent representative to the United Nations, to the stage to deliver her opening remarks.
Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, Mr. President of the General Assembly, Madam Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Mayor, distinguished ambassadors, distinguished guests, and all my dear friends and colleagues from this wonderful audience. Today's celebration is indeed very, very special. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lead us in doing yoga here at the United Nations lawns. To put matters in perspective, it was under his leadership and under his guidance that 21st June was declared as International Yoga Day, and it is only fitting, therefore, that the inspiration behind the idea is with us today in this scenic, multicultural setting of the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, it is truly beautiful to see so many around the world gather in solidarity for yoga. It is not living with the burden of weight or the lightness of oblivion. It is a choice made with balance, an idiosyncratic beauty, timeless throughout the progress of humanity. Yoga has endured. It is truth beyond articulation, wisdom beyond time. I hope all of you will cherish 21st June this year and hold it close to your hearts today and forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Cambodge, for your remarks. It's my turn now to invite the Honorable President of the UN General Assembly, Mr. Chaba Karoshi, for the stage.
Honorable Prime Minister, Madam Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Mayor, Madam Ambassador, dear friends, Namaste. Yoga is a way of uniting mind and body, and also the environment and us. The most memorable university lectures I attended as a student many years ago were on cultural traditions of ancient Eastern civilizations. They helped me understand that we are part of nature, despite regarding ourselves as aristocratically detached from other creatures. I also learned that the energies in the universe and inside us abide by the same law, a desire to achieve balance. Yoga changes our physical performance. But more importantly, it can spark in us different mental and intellectual performance. With the control that it teaches over ourselves, we learn how to make change and impact. Since that university lecture, I've been an admirer of yoga. I'm very proud of my daughter, who has already reached a high level of practice and is continuing her journey. Thanks to her, I understand better yoga's ethical guide. The guide, which includes the principle of non-stealing, non-greed, non-hoarding, and non-violence. In other words, yoga's ethical guide to living is a guide to sustainability, not overusing resources that belong to all of us, not prioritizing short-term gains over planetary boundaries, and working for transformation. Our world needs balance, self-control, and creativity, just as it needs recognition of moral responsibilities and cherishing peace and justice. There are many ways to approach these aims. Yoga is one of the means, for which I have a special respect. I'm happy to be here with all of you today, but let me apologize in advance. I am not a yoga practitioner, and the positions which you will show might look very different from what I end up doing. Still, I'm here with an open heart and open mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Karoshi, for highlighting the transformative power of yoga and in such a very personal way. At this time, I would now ask that Mayor Eric Adams, the mayor of the city of New York, please take the stage.
To Prime Minister Modi, to President of the General Assembly, to Deputy Secretary General, to Your Excellencies, to the Ambassador, to all of you, do not miss the significance of this moment. New York City is the largest and most important city in America. As I stand before you as the mayor of that city, I share with you in a clear and a universal tone that we are no longer focused solely on the physical body, but the anatomy of our spirit. For far too long, we have separated what our needs are emotionally, spiritually, and physically. We are going to go to the root causes of that which troubles many of us, from how we interact, to the food we eat, to allowing our children to have breathing exercises in the morning as they start their school day, to challenge the mental health issues that's impacting us. But there's a larger challenge for all of us. What we do on the mat and practicing yoga must become what we do on the streets and in our countries. We cannot become universally connected through the yellow mats we lay on, but disconnected as we move through our communities. Use the spirit and emotions of yoga to challenge and fight against war, to fight against gender oppression, to fight against violence, to fight against the lack of clean water, to fight against the food insecurity, to fight against the destruction of our planet. Our connectivity is not only how we're connected to our families and our parents. We have two mothers. One gave birth to us and one sustains us. Yoga keeps us connected to both mothers and connected to each other. This International Yoga Day is an international call for us to stand up for humankind across the globe and all living beings. I'm proud to be here. And I'm proud to symbolically represent this city as stating the International Yoga Day is an international call that we will be a leader here in New York City as you are a leader in your own environments. Thank you for allowing me to rejoice with you today.
Thank you, Mayor Adams, for spotlighting how yoga is integral to the anatomy of one's spirit. We appreciate that perspective and input. I'd like now to go to the video message of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who is not available to be with us in person, but is here in spirit. Please let us go to the videotape.
Happy International Day of Yoga. I want to recognize Prime Minister Modi for all he has done to promote understanding of yoga and its many benefits. Yoga unites. It unites body and mind, humanity and nature, and millions of people across the globe for whom it is a source of strength, harmony and peace. In a dangerous and divided world, the benefits of this ancient practice are particularly precious. Yoga offers a haven of calm. It can reduce anxiety and promote mental well-being. It helps us to develop discipline and patience. It connects us to our planet, which so badly needs our protection. And it reveals our common humanity, helping us to understand that despite our differences, we are one. On this International Day of Yoga, let us embrace the spirit of unity and resolve to build a better, more harmonious world for people, planet, and ourselves.
Friends, it is one of the deepest honors and privileges of my life to extend a heartfelt welcome. A heartfelt welcome and an invitation to no one else but the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Modi ji. I ask that on this auspicious occasion that he join us and that he address us with his remarks. Let us give him a very, very warm welcome.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Chaba Koroshi, President of UN General Assembly, Her Excellency, Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the Union, His Excellency Eric Adams, Mayor of New York, and my dear friends from all over the world. Namaskar. Friends, on this fine morning, we are gathered here at the United Nations, at the meeting point of entire humanity. In this wonderful city of New York, I know many of you have come here from far away. Most of you have woken up before sunrise and made the effort to come here. I am delighted to see you all, and I thank you all for coming. Friends, I am told that almost every nationality is represented here today. And what an amazing cause to bring us all together, yoga. Yoga means to unite. So your coming together is an expression of another form of yoga. I remember about 9 years ago, right here at the UN, I had the honor to propose celebrating the International Day of Yoga on 21st June. It was wonderful to see the entire world come together to support the idea back then. I've just paid respect to the brave UN peacekeepers. In 2015, I had called for a new memorial to be built at the UN in their memory. And last week, the whole world joined hands with India to make this reality soon. As the largest troop contributing nation, we are grateful to all nations for their expression of support to this noble cause. Last year, the entire world came together to support India's proposal to celebrate 2023 as the International Year of Millets. Millets are a superfood. They promote holistic health and are good for environment too. And today, it is wonderful to see the entire world come together again for yoga. Friends, yoga comes from India, and it is a very old tradition. But like all ancient Indian traditions, it is also living and dynamic. Yoga is free from copyright, free from patents, and free from royalty payments. Yoga is adaptable to your age, gender, and fitness level. Yoga is portable. You can do it at home or at work or in transit. Yoga is flexible. You can practice it alone or in a group, learn from a teacher or be self-taught. Yoga is unifying. It is for everyone, for all ethnicities, for all faiths, and for all cultures. Yoga is truly universal. Friends, when we do yoga, we feel physically fit, mentally calm, and emotionally content. But it is not just about doing exercise on a mat. Yoga is a way of life, a holistic approach to health and well-being, a way to mindfulness in thoughts and actions, a way to live in harmony with self, with others, and with nature. I am delighted that many of you are working on scientifically validating different aspects of yoga. Indeed, this is the way. Friends, I know you are all keen to get started. Well, so am I. I want to thank the United Nations for hosting us here today. I am grateful to the mayor and the city of New York for all their help and support in making this event success. And most of all, want to thank you all once again for being here today. Let us use the power of yoga not only to be healthy, happy, but also to be kind to ourselves and to each other. Let us use the power of yoga to build bridges of friendship, a peaceful world, and a cleaner, greener, and sustainable future. Let us join hands together to realize the goal of one earth, one family, one future. I conclude with a wish. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya. May everyone be happy. May everyone be healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Modi ji, for conveying such an inspirational message to us, for elaborating more about our theme, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, and stressing how yoga is really a way of life. At this time, I request that our esteemed dignitaries please leave the stage and join us below for the yoga lesson, because we would like to start that soon. You may... Friends, I'm now going to call upon yoga instructor Miss Annalise Richmond so that she can join on the stage. Quickly. We're going to prepare the stage so that we can get it ready for our yoga lesson. I've mentioned before that we'll have 6 energetic youngsters leading us along with Miss Annalise Richmond in this lesson. And we have more in the first row here on the north lawn joining us so that people behind can also follow that way too. I'm requesting that everyone stay on your yoga mat in your spot and to follow our yoga instructor and our yoga practitioners to the best of our ability. It's such a beautiful morning to have this opportunity to engage in yoga. The sun is not so strong, and we have a nice breeze coming through, which makes for a very pleasant morning for us to all share in this collective group. I'm delighted now to hand over the floor to our accomplished yoga instructor, Miss Annalise Richmond, who will now start our yoga session.
Thank you, Denise. A very warm welcome to our Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji and dignitaries. It is an honor to have you with us in our midst. We are delighted. Namaste. Let us all enter into the world of yoga together. Can you hear me in the back? Yes. Good. Let's bring our hands together in front of the heart in prayer pose. Keep the shoulders relaxed. And we'll do an invocation together. We'll be chanting Om 3 times together. Let's close the eyes. Let's take a deep breath in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And let us chant Om. Deep breath in. Breathe in.
Sangachadvam samvadadvam samvo manamsi janatam deva bhagam yatha purve sanyanana upasate sanyanana upasate Sanyanana upasate.
Let's relax our hands in our lap. And when you feel ready, you can gently open your eyes. We'll start our yoga sadhana, our yoga practice, with some loosening exercises to increase the circulation in the body. So let's stand up. We'll start in samastiti, alert posture. So the feet 2 to 3 inches apart from each other in parallel. Stand with the spine tall. And let's bring our hands onto our waist. We'll do neck exercises first. Be careful in case of any neck injuries or cervical spondylitis here. Let's inhale, stretch the spine. Exhale, bring the chin to the chest as much as you can, all the way to the chest. Inhale, raise the head back up. Exhale, let the chin and head fall back. Face to the sky. Inhale, head to the center. Exhale, chin to the chest. Relax. Inhale, bring the head back to the center. Exhale, let the head go back, stretching the front of the neck. And one more time, inhale to the center. Exhale, chin to the chest. Stretch the back of the neck. Inhale the head to the center. You can smile. And exhale, let the head go back gently. Open the throat and chest. Inhale back to the center. Relax. Good. Keeping the hands on the waist, we'll twist the neck from right to left. Be careful not to jerk the neck. Let's inhale, stand tall. Exhale, turn the chin over the right shoulder. Look all the way over to the right. Feel the stretch in the left side of the neck. Inhale back to the center. Smile. Exhale, the chin over the left shoulder. Feel the stretch in the right side of the neck. Good. Inhale back to the center. And exhale, chin over the right shoulder. Look as far as you can with the eyes. Inhale, back to the center. Breathe in. Exhale, chin over the left shoulder. Look to the left. Good. Inhale, come back to the center. And exhale, relax. Good. Now we'll do trunk twisting to warm up the body and spine. Be careful of any spinal injuries in this warm-up. So let's bring the feet 1 foot apart. Feet in parallel in Samastiti, alert posture. Back is tall. Inhale, take the arms out in front of you, hands parallel to each other. Exhale, keep the hips where they are. Turn just the upper body to the right. Left palm towards the right shoulder. Look to the right. Good. Inhale, come back to the center. Palms facing each other. Exhale, twist just the upper body to the left. Palm facing the left shoulder. Good. Inhale, come back. Looking forward, palms facing each other. Exhale, twist just the upper body to the right. Look to the right. Left palm to the right shoulder. Good. Inhale, come back to the center. And exhale, twist just the upper body to the left. Right palm towards the left shoulder. Good. Inhale, come back to the center. You can smile. Exhale, relax. Good. Now let's start our yoga asanas, or yoga postures. We'll start with Tadasana, the palm tree posture. If you have any arthritis in the lower extremities, don't raise up onto your ankles in this posture. So for Tadasana, we'll start in Samastiti, feet 2 to 3 inches apart from each other. And inhale, raise the arms up to shoulder height. Exhale, clasp the fingers and push the palms away from you. Good. Inhale, raise the arms up. Exhale here, lengthen the spine. Inhale, come up onto the toes and breathe here. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, grow taller. And breathe out. Slowly lower down the feet. Unclasp the hands slowly with awareness on the body. Lower the arms down slowly. Good. And relax. And now again, let's bring the feet 2 to 3 inches apart. Samastiti, alert posture. We'll take a back bend. If you have any vertigo or back injuries, be careful with this pose. So Ardha Chakrasana, the half-wheel posture. Let's take the hands to the waist. Inhale, grow tall. Exhale, slide the fingers back to support the back, elbows in parallel behind the back. Inhale, let the head go back, opening the front of the neck. As you exhale, bend from the lumbar spine, go back carefully and easily as far back as you can. And let's breathe here. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and out. Awareness on the whole body. Breathe in and breathe out. Good. Inhale, lift the chest, come back up. Slowly. Good. And exhale, relax. Good. We'll take a forward bend. Pada Hastasana, the hands to the feet posture. So keeping the feet in parallel, 2 to 3 inches apart from each other. Inhale, take the arms up from the front, all the way up. And exhale, bending only from the hip joint. Keep the legs straight. Start to reach forward. Stretch your fingertips forward till your body is like a table parallel to the ground. And now slowly lower the fingertips down. Either bring the hands to the shins or fingertips to the ground or the palms on the ground if you can. Drop your head towards your knees. Let's take a few deep breaths. Breathe in. And breathe out. Keep the legs straight. Breathe in. As you breathe out, head towards the knees. Breathe in. Breathe out. Go a little further. Breathe in. And breathe out. Good. Inhale, slide the fingertips forward. Stretch the arms forward. Let the back come up with the arms. Breathe in slowly. Come all the way up. Smile. Good, and relax. Excellent. And we'll go to the floor. You can just stretch the legs out in front of you. Put your hands behind your back in a relaxed posture. Let the head go back a little. Vishramasana. This is our relaxation pose. And now let's bring the feet together. Toes pointing up to the sky. Hands beside the hips, spine tall. Tadasana. Inhale, lengthen your spine. Good. Exhale, press the hips into the ground. And now we'll do Bhadrasana, the firm posture. So be careful in this posture in case of sciatica or arthritis. Let's inhale, bring the feet together, soles of the feet together. Exhale, wrap your hands around your feet. Good. Inhale, sit tall. And exhale, pull the heels as close as you can to the perineum.